send it to you. Tracy, I'm gonna send it to you now.
Yeah, that'd be bad. Hey, doing, Matt?
Oh,
Not much. How are you?
how you doing, man?
Good, sir. Really good.
Yeah?
Yeah. Okay. Yep.
Good stuff.
What's up, Eminem?
It's gonna be dog.
You don't.
Okay. All right.
All right, I'll call the meeting order of Mayor and Council. If you'll rise for the invocation by Councilman McCoy.
Good evening. You guys bow your heads, please. Dear Lord, thank you for this opportunity to gather in your name. Lord, please watch over this great nation and our planet, Lord. We know a lot of people out there are facing a lot of issues right now, Lord, surrounding COVID-19. Please be with those members fighting that and those families as well. Lord, continue to remind us as a people here in our community to come together underneath your name, underneath your guidance and your direction. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Please remain standing for the pledge. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You may be seated. Okay, do we have any changes to tonight's agenda?
No, sir, we do not.
Okay, each of you have received the minutes from our last meeting on April 14th. If there are no questions or concerns with those minutes, I'll accept the motion.
Mr. Mayor, make that motion.
Thank you. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay,
Mr.
that-
Mayor, I have to abstain. I wasn't here.
Yes, sir. Understood. Noted. Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, it's unanimous. All right, tonight we have our formal real estate tax appeal hearing. Yes, sir.
Point of order. Are we roll calling?
We will roll call on all future things. Yes, sir. Thank you for pointing that out. Okay, so tonight we have real estate tax appeal hearings, and who is our first person here?
Our first appeal is the property owner from 803 Griffin Street.
So if you'll come to the podium and state your name and your address for the record, please.
So Mr. Fred Pearson, who is our tax assessor through PTA Del Val, is on the phone. Fred, can you hear us?
I can hear you.
Okay, this is our first one, the property owner of 803 Griffin Street.
Okay.
Gentlemen, ladies,
Evening.
Good evening.
good evening. My name is Salem Bereza, and I purchased the property on 803 Griffin Street this past May. And the reason I'm appealing my taxes is for the price that I paid for the property. I figured it's only fair that we review this tax. I brought you here the settlement as well as the deed.
Okay.
Anybody want to see this? or-
Sure. If you'll pass those down, please, just over here. Thank you.
Fred, do you have any questions for the property owner?
No, this is a new one. I have not had a chance to look at it, but I've also got access to MLS too, so I can look it up and get some information. And I think he just said that he just bought it, so we'll have all the information there.
So we'll follow up with him?
Yeah, we'll ask Tracy to make sure we have his contact information, and then we can connect the two of you subsequent to this. Is that fair, Fred?
Yes.
Okay.
So as we discussed earlier, Fred, the plan is for these appeals, for the recommendation to come back before the city council at the June 9th council meeting. So therefore, at that date on June 9th, he will present a recommendation to the city council of if he decides to change your assessment or make a recommendation to them. And you will be notified in writing of that recommendation. Okay?
Councilman Henderson has a question.
My name is Dan Henderson. The settlement sheet got by me really quickly. Did you say that there was May this month or the
No, last.
previous 2019?
I've already paid up what was based on the assessed price of 85,200. And the place was a little bit dilapidated when I got it because it was in foreclosure. And I only paid 55,000 for it.
Okay. Thank you.
We're going to hand you your paperwork back.
Oh, you did?
Mr. Mayor, I have a question.
Yes, sir.
So you say when you bought it, it's a repossessed property? So what type of improvements have you done to the property since you purchased it?
Other than basically carpeting, the floor in the kitchen, paint. The fence was also broken. I had to repair that. So I put in roughly about $5,000 worth of, because since I did the work myself.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
Just for clarification purposes, Councilman McCoy, that's a, if I look at the document correctly, it's a HUD house assessment? Is that incorrect?
Oh, I don't know
Who
who,
we purchased it from?
Well, on the document, it looks like it's a HUD house as far as the,
I think
That's a HUD sheet, that's.
the HUD one is your settlement sheet.
okay, so it was not a HUD. So you were not mandatory to purchase the house. You didn't have to make up improvements for the house. It wasn't mandatory.
it was.
It was
It was
mandatory.
not living condition for personally. The carpet was basically shot.
Okay.
I mean, when we tore it off, it was water damage everywhere.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll follow up with you, and you'll get notification for the June meeting.
Okay, sounds good. One question.
Yes, sir.
They told me since this will be retroactive in the event that the taxes are reduced?
Tracy, do you want to answer that, please?
No, we don't do retroactive. What we do is we just make this change to go forward to be effective in the next billing cycle, which would be in July 1 when those bills go out.
Okay? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Tracy, who's next?
Our next one is Mr. Wheatley for a parcel out on Sussex Highway.
If you'll come down here to the mic and just state your name and address for the record. Good evening.
Good evening.
How is everyone?
Good, how you doing? How you doing, Mr. Wheatley?
David Wheatley, 22296 Shore Drive, Seaford, and I'm just appealing the increase in the taxes and the improvement, what do they call it? Assessment, no. Get all my paper here. Improvement value. Yeah, improvement value. I didn't know what improvements we had.
Fred, can you speak to the improvement values he's seeing on his tax assessment?
On his property, I don't see an improvement value. It's all land value.
Right, this is your land. There's no improvement here.
No, this is last. $40,000 improvement.
So there is showing here on the bill that I have from 2019, Fred, of improvement value of $40,000. And this is for the parcel 331-4-019, PID 4150.
Okay. Okay. I'm just showing a land value of $4,608,500. Is that what you have for the total assessed value?
That's what I have for the land value, so we'll have to pull that tax card to see what that improvement value consists of.
Okay, okay.
So is that something we're going to have to follow up with Mr. Wheatley to see what the 40,000 is? Okay. We'll have to find out, do some research on where that 40,000 came from.
Is there any fencing on the property,
Any fencing?
or a shed, or anything of that nature?
No.
No improvements?
Yeah, we'll just have to pull it.
So
Does
we'll,
it have any land, Tracy, does it have any land that's non-productive? Is it wetlands? Have any wetlands on it?
There's wetlands and woods, yes, but I don't know the acreage.
Okay. I'll check it on,
20 acres.
Sussex
or so,
County
way back.
GIS maps.
okay,
How much, Jim?
You got quite a bit.
Yeah.
okay. We'll research this and then follow up before the June meeting, so you'll get something back from us
Get
on
Drew
that.
over here.
June the 9th is when he's in.
Okay.
Thank you for making us aware.
Am I out of here? All right, thank you, folks.
Yes,
All right,
sir.
have a good evening.
Thank you.
Sorry
Stay
to hold
safe.
you up.
No, we
not
appreciate
holding
you
us up.
coming.
See
Take care.
you. See you.
So at this time, we do not have anyone else signed in for tax appeals. However, I did want to read into the record that this afternoon I spoke with Tamika Jones in reference to 724 Thompson Street. We did allow, due to everything going on, people submit their appeal in writing if they desired. So she is going to submit something in writing in reference to that property, and I did ask her to have it to me by this Thursday.
Okay,
So at this point in time, we don't have any others, but tax appeals will be held open until 8 o'clock.
right. So if someone comes in and wants to appeal their tax, we'll stop our normal meeting and we'll hear that. Thank you, Tracy. Thank you, Fred. Okay, do we have any correspondence?
No, sir, we do not.
Okay, thank you. All right, so first under new business, we have, this has been something we've had for a little while now for the Director of Electric and Power, Bill Bennett. The City of Seaford, the Electric Department received a 2019 First Place Award for Safety. The American Public Power Association, the APPA Awards, an annual safety award determined by how many hours worked by a utility in a calendar year. In 2019, the Seaford Electric Department worked 20,119.25 hours providing reliable power to customers of the City of Seaford electric system. So we also have, are we going to present this award now? Let's do it, Bill. You're on your way up. I'm going to do it. Let's do one, and we'll do them, we'll break them up. Go around, Bill. And I'll just go ahead and read the next one. Bill, if you'll stay right there. The APPA awards a RP3 award every 3 years that evaluates system reliability, training, staffing levels, system upgrades, and planning for future load and upgrades. In 2019, the City of Seaford Electric Department was once again awarded the gold status. This was achieved by the dedicated line crew that we have, planning for the future, and the council's support to make the upgrades necessary to provide reliable electric service to the customers of the electric system.
Bill Bennett, Director of Electric, Mayor and Council and City Management. The Safety Award is an award I have to track their hours every week. So that's how you get to .25 hours. I total it up through every week when I do top cars, I total it up. And we do stress safety in the line crew. It's a very important part of our job. and my guys all of them take it very seriously. They do it by group. It depends on how many, we're Group B, depends on how many hours, how big your crew is what group you're rated in. So for our group, we got first place in that group once again this year, and it doesn't take a whole lot. Last year, unfortunately, we didn't get it. We had a guy that got hurt one time, and he missed, I think it was 2 days' work, and he was late duty for a week.
Okay.
And that one injury knocks you out. So it is very important, and we stress it. For the RP3 award, that's given every 3 years, and they take a lot of metrics into that. We track our outages, how long they are, how many people it affects, and the cause, whether it's a transformer malfunction or whether it's an animal or weather. So all that gets tracked and puts into the database. But they also look at your system upgrades, where we did the substation upgrade, distribution upgrades, where you're planning ahead for the transformer replacement at Raw Substation in about 5 years. So all those things I spend a few hours, a few days really, putting all this information into the report. It gets submitted because of how intense it is. That's why they do that every 3 years, but also because you could have one storm come through that could totally skew the
Right.
the ratings of it. So they do that on a 3-year rotation. So hopefully next year I see you again for the safety award, and in 3 years I see you for the reliable power award. Thank you.
Well, I know when we go to Dover Downs every year, we typically are up there quite a bit seeing you receive awards. So it's an honor to have you, and please thank all your crew for the good work they do. We appreciate it.
I'll do it. Thank
All
you.
right.
Thanks for your
Thank you, Bill.
Bill.
Good job.
Okay, next we have the agreement between the school district and our Seaford Police Department. Is the Chief, Marshall Kraft's going to present? Evening, Chief.
Good evening.
Good evening.
How are you?
Good.
So we completed our first year with the Seaford School District for our first year as the SRO program. And we did, I think we did a great job. Our SRO did a fantastic job. We now have prepared a new contract for the new upcoming school year for July 1, 2020 to end June 30th on 2021. And the recommendation is once again to provide one trained, experienced school resource officer, who is our Detective Tyler Justice. He's a 6-year corporal now. He meets all the requirements. He did a fantastic job. And there's only been a minor change made to the contract that the council approved last school year. And that was where we just clarified in the contract, due to our recent experience with the pandemic, that during state emergencies, obviously, the officer would be assigned back to the department and still work in conjunction with the school as needed, as well as in the summer when the school's out, the officer would be reassigned back to the detective division, but once again, as needed, provide that assistance to the summer school programs, our youth programs, and to continue to provide training to any school staff that's necessary. And he's done a fantastic job. So really, that was the only change in there, just for some clarification.
Okay, are there any questions in reference to the agreement on the SRO officer? Yes, sir. Councilman Henderson.
Dan Henderson. The signatory on this document states law enforcement agency. Is our motion going to allow the chief to sign that, or is that a duty of the city manager?
Yep, sir.
Just to address your question, Councilman Henderson, if you give staff the authority to execute it, either the chief or myself can execute it. And Chief can help me, but I recall when we did this last year, this was the way that we had it executed. Is that correct?
That's correct, because it's an agreement between the services that I'm responsible to oversee for that officer to provide. And that's how it's done in all other agencies I've been to.
Well, if the opportunity comes along, I'll be prepared to make a motion altering the language of the motion to reflect that.
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right, are there any other questions in reference to renewal of the contract? If not, I'll accept the motion.
Dan Henderson. Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to approve the memorandum of agreement between the Seaford School District Board of Education and the Seaford Police Department as presented, and allow Chief Marshal Kraft to execute the document.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second, Councilman McCoy.
Okay, thank you. Can we have a roll call vote, Tracy, please?
Councilman McCoy,
Yes.
Councilman Henderson,
Aye.
Councilman Mulvaney,
Aye.
Councilman Holland,
Aye.
Councilman King.
Aye.
Okay, it passes unanimously.
Thank you.
All right, next we have the, was that a combination there? Okay, sorry. Tried to sneak that by on me, okay. All right, next we have the bids for cleanup.
So good evening, council.
Good
In your
evening.
package, you have a bid analysis from the Director of Public Works, Burley Mears. And this year, we only received one bid for our annual cleanup week bid solicitation, and that was from Waste Industries. And the Director of Public Works is recommending awarding it to Waste Industries, and it is in the amount of $175 per pull. So that total base bid, based on his estimates from prior year's cleanup weeks, would be a total amount of $23,250. I'll just add that we have worked with Waste Industries before. They have done the contract for us, so we have familiarity with them. They know the work, and we feel confident in awarding it to them.
Okay, are there any questions in reference to the cleanup bid? Yes, sir, Councilman
Councilman
McCoy.
McCoy, the price per pool, is that in line normally with what we have year over year?
Yes, last year, I believe, in looking back at it with the Director of Public Works, it's the exact same number that they did last year. Prior to that, it was a little bit lower. Last year, it went up a little bit, but yes, sir, it is the same as last year.
Okay. Any other questions on the cleanup bid? If not, I'll accept a motion.
Councilman McCoy, I'll make that motion to award a bid for Cleanup Week 2020, services to Waste Industries, the low bidder, and the estimated amount of $23,250 as presented.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Mr. Mayor, I second that motion.
Councilman Holland seconds. Tracy, can we have a roll call vote, please?
Councilman McCoy,
Aye.
Councilman Henderson,
Aye.
Councilman Mulvaney,
Aye.
Councilman Holland,
Aye.
Councilman King.
Aye.
Okay, it passes unanimously. All right, next. Yes, sir.
I have a question about new business number 4. I made a motion
For
on
new business number
business
3. Yes. Council should go back, if you would not mind, and please do a motion for us for new business number 4, because they were two separate documents. They're independent.
But we need
and
two motions.
The chief will need to execute both documents.
Okay. All right, so this is in reference to the contract for the school year 2020 and 2021, which was presented by the chief. I'll accept the motion.
Mr. Mayor, Dan Henderson here. Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to approve the Seaford Police Department School Resource Officer contract for the school year 2021 as presented, and to allow Chief Marshal Kraft to execute the document.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Councilman McCoy, I'll second.
Okay, thank you. Tracy, can we have a roll call vote on that, please?
Councilman McCoy,
Aye.
Councilman Henderson,
Aye.
Councilman Mulvaney,
Aye.
Councilman Holland,
Aye.
Councilman King.
Aye.
Okay, it's unanimous. Councilman Henderson, thank you for catching that. Okay, next we have the SVN contract on the Ross Business Park lands.
All right, and council has in their package a letter from SVN Miller Commercial Real Estate, and it is requesting an extension of our listing agreement for the Ross Business Park. Tricia Newcomer, our Director of Economic Development, is here, and she was instrumental in entering into this agreement several years ago. I believe this is our third extension that we would execute should council decide to do that. It would extend it through April 30th of 2021, and it is exclusive to the Ross Business Park lands. This past year, we have had one land sale that we recently commenced with a property owner out there for Lot 7. Other than that, that's the only sale that we've had recently. So either Ms. Newcomer or I will take any questions from council should you have any.
For clarification, does this include the 110 acres of undeveloped land?
It's all of it.
It's all
Yes.
of it?
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
Okay, are there any questions? Yes, sir, Councilman Henderson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Does SVN Miller Commercial Real Estate have a listing agreement in the industrial park as well?
They do not, sir.
So we don't have a listing agreement with anyone in that park?
We do not, and the reason why, all that land is now sold. We don't own any more
Okay,
over
so
there.
there's no
Yeah,
city-owned property there?
we do not have any more over there. Well, everything that we own now has water towers on it, lift stations, things we want to retain.
Nothing for sale?
No, sir.
Or sellable? Okay. The existing agreement is expired, less than 2 weeks. What is the risk of not having an agreement?
I don't see any risk per se. We would obviously, if someone came to us and wanted to purchase a piece of property, obviously our economic development director would bring that to our economic development committee, and then we would then make a recommendation to council, as we have done in the past, as we've done with other, we still basically do that now. Even when we get an offer, we still have to bring it through council. One of the things they said to us, I guess I'll share this and I'll ask Trish maybe to help a little bit, but they really are pushing us to have something to sell per se. Right now it's raw land, it's farmland. So when you ride by, it's actually a farm field. So in our meetings with them early on, they said, it'd be really nice if we had the road that people could ride by and see, and we could pull them over and say, this was where your lot would be, here's where your water connection is, sewer connection. It may be a good idea as we're advancing that project, as council's well aware, we are pursuing that, may be a good idea to, if it's the desire of the council, to drive that project forward, and then in essence have something more to market and look at this again in the future, should council decide to take that route as well.
If I might.
Yes, sir.
My particular concern is that we have bond bill money, and there's going to be physical improvements done to this property, and there's going to be some infrastructure possibly laid, and SVN will reap the exclusive benefits of that, and it'll freeze out any other real estate agents from competing once we've done those improvements. My suggestion is to delay a new agreement so that the property is more attractive and more competitive to market with other real estate agents.
Mr. Mayor, I have a question as well.
Councilman King?
Yep, Councilman King. Charles, SVN, can we talk about location? I understand we have a working relationship with this company, but what is their location?
They're in Salisbury, Maryland. Yeah, and we have worked with SVN on several projects, not only our own projects, but as an example, they are the realtor for Allen's Hatchery location. So we worked with them. We've worked with them on several commercial, industrial, over the last, Trish, we've been working with them for 10 years, 15 years. Yeah, I'm sorry. Tom Knott does have an office here in Seaford on Bridgeville Highway. Thank you for that.
Any other questions from council? If there are no other questions, I'll accept a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion that we table this item for future deliberation once we know more about the bond bill and any infrastructure construction that's going to take place on that property.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Mr. Mayor, I'll second that motion.
Okay, Councilman Holland seconds. Tracy, can we have a roll call vote, please?
Councilman McCoy?
Aye.
Councilman Henderson?
Aye.
Councilman Mulvaney?
Aye.
Councilman Holland?
Aye.
Councilman King?
Aye.
All right, it's unanimous. Thank you. All right, next we have the bids for financing options on the Spruce Street Tower repairs. And is Director of Finance going to present that, June Merritt? Good evening, June.
Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor and Council.
Good evening.
All right, so I sent out bids to several financial institutions for the borrowing of the repainting and repairing of the Spruce Street Water Tower. That was in the FY20 budget. It was originally budgeted for $550,000. That bid came in much significantly less. And, through the budget process, we were paying for part of that with $100,000 from reserves, and then the other piece would be from a loan. So at this time, we only need to borrow $340,000 for the water tower repairs and repainting. So the three quotes that I received one from M&T Bank. They only quoted a fixed rate, and that was at 2.75%. Community Bank quoted a fixed rate at 1.95%. They also did a variable at 55% of prime, which equates to 1.785%. And then the Bank of Delmarva quoted 3% for a fixed rate and 63% of prime, which equates to 2.05%. So with that analysis, I am recommending a fixed rate just because of market conditions at this time, and Community Bank Delaware is has the lowest rate.
Okay, are there any questions in reference to financing the water
I have
tower?
one.
Councilman King?
So, June, what is the benefit of financing the money at a very good interest rate versus just transferring the money out of reserves, paying for the project and not paying any interest?
You certainly could do that. This is a long-term project. It's only done once every, 10 to 20 years. It's a 20-year project. So, you could, like I said, you could transfer all of it from reserves if that's what you choose to do.
So what would the calculations be on the interest payment, paying that loan back?
I don't have that right here in front of me, but I can get that for you if you would like.
Yes, sir.
If I could, the monthly payment for 5 years would be $5,960.
Yes. So almost $6,000 a month.
I might add, in this environment, we need to have reserves.
I would agree.
If I might make a comment. Charles Anderson. One of the issues was we as staff, this was part of our budget that we did in FY20, and we presented and were approved by council and requested to fund several projects, one of them being the police department renovations, which you're going to hear about this project. So that's how our budget was predicated. That's what council approved. So we're bringing that back as, in essence, as in fact, the budget was adopted. So that was, in essence, our marching order that we were given, was to create financing options and loans. That's how we baked the budget in. And we did not do the analysis of the reserve accounts to fully fund this. And I will say, the Director of Finance touched on it, but this $340,000, council will recall, we budgeted this project at $550,000. So, and we put $100,000 from reserves towards it. But I will say, from staff's perspective, our Director of Public Works really babysat this project, stayed on top of the contractor. So this is don't want to let this go by. This really was a job well done by our staff to really keep that project within line. Not having an overrun on a project like that was really a job well done. So if I might add that comment.
Okay. Councilman Henderson?
Thank you. June, how does this, call it $6,000, how does that compare to what we had budgeted? Is it favorable?
Well, when we budgeted, we had an estimate. We believed that the project was going to cost us $550,000. So we were going to borrow $450,000. And I think at that time, last year, when we were in the budget writing process, not knowing exactly what the rates would be, I just assumed a 5% and did an amortization. So it is
looking
much
really
less.
good. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Any other questions in reference to the financing? If not, I'll accept the motion.
Mr. Mayor, Councilman McCoy, I'll make the motion to award the quotations from the Community Bank Delaware for the financing of the Spruce Street Water Tower repairs and repainting project as presented.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I second.
Okay, Dan
Dan
Henderson.
Henderson.
Second, sorry about that. Okay, Tracy, can we have a roll call vote, please?
Councilman McCoy?
Aye.
Councilman Henderson?
Aye.
Councilman Mulvaney,
Aye.
Councilman Holland,
Aye.
Councilman King.
Aye.
Okay, it's unanimous. And next, June's going to tell us the financing options on the police department renovations.
Okay. So we received bids just a few weeks ago, and you'll see that the bid came in, I think it was at $665,000, but there's also contract administration fees to be added in that, construction administration fees. And so we've put a limit of $690,000 as far as the amount. If through the construction process, if it comes in less, we won't have to borrow that much, but that's kind of our upper limit at this point in time. So again, I received 3 quotes. I sent out requests to 5 different lending institutions, received 3. Same 3, again, M&T Bank only quoted a fixed rate at 2.99%. Community Bank Delaware of 2.69% was the fixed rate. Their variable rate was 55% of prime, which equates to 1.7875%. And then the Bank of Delmarva quoted 3% on the fixed rate and 63% of prime, which equals to 2.05%. So again, I am recommending that we go with a fixed rate, and so the lowest fixed rate would be Community Bank Delaware.
Okay, are there any questions on the financing of the police department renovations?
One question.
Yes, sir, Councilman Henderson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So is this a construction loan that will be drafted from and then reset, or is it just going to be accrued to a total and then just go on from there?
It would be a construction loan. We would pull from it as needed.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? If not, I'll accept the motion.
Mr. Mayor, Councilman McCoy, I'll make the motion to award the quotations from the Community Bank Delaware for the financing of the police department renovations project as presented.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Mr. Mayor, I'll second that motion.
Councilman Holland, second. Tracy, can we have a roll call vote, please?
Councilman McCoy,
Aye.
Councilman Henderson,
Aye.
Councilman Mulvaney,
Aye.
Councilman Holland,
Aye.
Councilman King.
Aye.
Okay, it's unanimous. Thank you.
Right.
Thank you, Jim.
Thank you, Jim.
Appreciate your work on this. All right, next before you is the Hotel-Motel Tax. If you'll remember, this is something we passed back at the beginning of the year. This got brought back to us by the hotels here locally in our community because other communities have waived their hotel-motel tax during the state of emergency. And we were asked, what would we do? And so Charles and I have discussed, and Charles will walk through some potential options that you might want to consider.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. So you'll see there in your package a memo from June. She pulled together where we are now and when the ordinance was passed. So we have basically collected tax in January, February, and March from the hotels in our jurisdiction. And you'll see there we collected $24,758.20. April we have not collected yet. It's due soon. So one of the issues we talked through, we should not consider refunding the tax, because these taxes are collected from individuals. So if we refunded the tax, the proprietors would have to search out these people and try to refund them the 3%. So one of the things we could do, should the council desire to do that, obviously the council can do nothing, leave it in place, and these revenues we anticipate to be down quite a bit. Or you could look at rescinding the tax for a period of time. We put down here 3 months, the summer period, should you want to do that. And as the mayor said, we have followed up with several of the area mayors, and they have given some consideration, Dover and Georgetown we've talked to, given some consideration to their hotel proprietors. So it's something we wanted to provide council the information with, should they desire to consider that. And June is here with me, so she or I can certainly try to answer any questions council might have.
Okay, are there any questions in reference to a suspension of the hotel-motel tax? Yes, sir, Councilman McCoy.
Given the limited knowledge on this that I have, is there a precedence for something in the past, locally or otherwise, where a city or a township has rescinded this tax for a different reason?
Councilman, I'm not aware of a tax being rescinded. I will share with you two things. When we adopted sewer and water charges back in 1993, we actually, I should say it differently, we adopted them in 1990, and we had a 2-year period before we implemented the tax. So we wanted to give people enough time to understand, hey, when you start to pull building permits, here's what your tax is going to look like. So that was one way we did that back then in the early 90s. I will say that what we spoke with Mayor Christensen in Dover, and what they were doing was rolling the tax in. So they were starting for a period of time 1%, then they were going to go to 2%, and then 3%. Was that?
Yeah. I think the difference here today is, again, the state of emergency has come out of nowhere and impacted these folks. Other towns have done it. Milford's holding back on their rate increases that they had proposed. So again, this was just a small offering of help to this industry that's been.
I guess my question is surrounded around just if other cities or towns have done, they're experiencing the same thing we are. What, and everybody's talking about what exactly is everybody doing.
Most of these owners own other hotels in these same towns. That's how they were aware of this and what was going on in Salisbury and different areas. That's why we got approached.
And what, in speaking with them, because we did bring them in, 3 of them met with us, and we tried to hear where they were coming from and what their concerns and pressures were. I believe their issues were that if there is a tax per se in Seaford and there is not in Georgetown or there's not in Milford, that little advantage can reduce their overall occupancy. They'll go to Georgetown, or the visitor will go to Milford or Georgetown, all other things being equal for the 3% difference. Have I summed up kind of what their concerns are?
People today are shopping online for hotels. It's easy to get the spread of cost. So that was their approach. We held tight to keeping our Hotel-Motel Tax back then. This has come up again. They're being hit by something unknown. And
Sure. Ultimately that's where we're at. The country is out of whack, but the hospitality industry, they're all hurting.
Sure.
So if there's something we can do to help our hotel-motel owners, I'm all for it.
I offered I would bring it in front of you guys, that would be something I'm sure we should consider, and that's where we are.
I have a question.
Councilman King?
Yep, Councilman. So Charles, if I understand it correctly, so this isn't lost revenue for the hotel-motel owner. This is a lodging tax. So that's going to impact the person that's staying at that hotel. And so if you keep it, or if Seaford keeps it, Georgetown doesn't have it, Lewis doesn't have it. And so, to your points, when people are out looking for a deal, then it would be a deterrent and actually push tourists in another location if we kept the tax.
That was the proprietor's concern they expressed to us.
Right.
I want to make sure I understood. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Yes, sir. Councilman Henderson.
I understand you correctly that April and May are not part of this.
That's correct.
Right?
You are correct, sir.
So,
yes.
So June, July, and August are likely to be, many of these will have 0 occupancy. So there will be no tax to collect in the first place.
We believe that to be correct.
Or it'll be
Minimal.
very minimal.
Part of this is goodwill.
So I'm inclined to be in favor of that.
And maybe just to expound a little bit, we chose June 1st because what we would need to do, if council decides to suspend the tax for that 3-month period or longer, we need to get a notice out to them so that they don't collect the tax starting a certain date, so then they do have to refund the tax.
Right.
So there's going to be that little bit of lag in there to be able to communicate with them. And they're local, they're close. We actually delivered the original letters by hand to them, so likely we'll do the same thing to give them as much heads up as we can.
Yes, sir.
Dan Henderson with a follow-up. Is 2 weeks enough for the city to get this done and delivered to the hotels?
Yes, sir, I believe so.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. All right. If there are no further questions, I'll accept the motion.
All right, Mr. Mayor, I'll make the motion to suspend the collection of the hotel-motel tax by the city of Seaford from June 1st, 2020 until August the 31st, 2020 as presented.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Mr. Mayor, I second that motion.
Councilman Holland seconds. Tracy, can we have a roll call vote?
Councilman McCoy,
Aye.
Councilman Henderson,
Aye.
Councilman Mulvaney,
Aye.
Councilman Holland?
Aye.
Councilman King?
Aye. Thank you, guys. It's unanimous. They'll be happy to hear that news and give them a little, hopefully this economy turns. This will allow them to get back in the game and start regaining some lost revenue. Okay. All right, do we have any old business?
No, sir, we do not.
How about reminders of, boy, it's hard to believe we haven't had meetings in so long, but
Yes, sir.
reminders of meetings.
It's going to crank up now.
Yep.
Just a reminder of a couple meetings. We do have a budget workshop meeting at City Hall in this location from 6 o'clock till 8 o'clock in the evening on May 19th. City offices will be closed in observance of the Memorial Day holiday on May 25th. And then summer hours start for the utility crews and the City Hall staff. That's from 7 to 4, and that'll begin Tuesday, May 26th. So we're looking forward to that. City of Seaford is having a municipal election, and that revised date now is May 16th, 2020, this Saturday. It's from 3 to 7. Everybody's aware Mayor David Genshaw has filed for re-election as mayor. Councilman James King has filed for mayor as well. Councilman Dan Henderson has filed for re-election for council. And then Alan Cranston and Jose Santos have filed for the one of the 2 open council seats. That's all that I have, sir.
Okay, thank you, City Manager. All right, we'll go to committee reports. We'll start off with Public Works and Wastewater Treatment with Councilman McCoy.
Councilman McCoy, thank you, Mr. Mayor. The report's been submitted in its entirety. I'll hit a few highlights. Over the past 2 weeks, in regards to Public Works, they have installed a new water service on State Street and Clarence Street, disconnected water services for demolitions, pulled up at the Mears lift station for repair, and they're currently operating half-staff due to COVID-19. Past 2 weeks in regards to wastewater treatment facility and compost, plant performance is good. They do have compost to sell by appointment, and no major equipment maintenance has been needed. Over the upcoming 2 weeks in regards to Public Works, they're going to keep caught up on the L&L, replace fire hydrants, and continue all routine tasks. In regards to wastewater treatment facility and compost, they're going to keep the plant up and running with no violations, perform maintenance as needed, and screen for compost. Mr. Mayor, it's been my report. Been submitted in its entirety.
Thank you very much. Next, we'll have Police and Fire with Councilman Henderson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First, let me apologize. I submitted the incorrect report for your council iPad, and I submitted a correction, but it was way too late to get a new one made. I do have remarks. I'll try to keep them in as brief as possible. There's a month's worth of data here. So I do have a report from Chief Wilson. Alarms year-to-date as of yesterday at 3 p.m. We have 246 fire and rescue alarms and 1,161 EMS calls. There were no significant alarms to report. Command 87 is out of service due to a motor vehicle crash resulting from police action on May 7th. And that may be old information. I thought I saw it riding around town, so maybe it's fixed by now. So, in EMS, they're interviewing 4 prospective people on this coming Saturday for the filling of vacancies there. And as of yesterday, EMS has responded to 32 positive COVID-19 cases. Training is still suspended until the lifting of the state of emergency for large gatherings. Department meeting is being done by Zoom format, and that'll be done again tomorrow night at 7:30. The department has applied for a state combined grant for AFG federal funding for COVID-19 funding. They've applied for payroll protection grants for career services, and they're purchasing a new fire service washer, extractor, and dryer for the firefighting gear. That's for the COVID-19 and cancer in order to meet NFPA, National Fire Protection Association recommendations. When you receive the correct report, you'll see a monthly fire report, both March and April, from Second Assistant Chief Tom McCates, showing you dates and times of and the number of calls distributed through those time periods. You'll also see the types of fires and the numbers, types of alarms and numbers of them, also in that distribution. I'll move on to police activity. You'll see a couple of months worth of, or a couple of periods worth of reports there. Basically a month's worth of activity in two separate reports. It's too voluminous. I won't take up the time to do that, but I will just go through one important piece of correspondence from the chief that he asked me to communicate to you guys. He wanted to let you know that he's received an increase in numerous types of complaints, from traffic violations to nuisance complaints on several streets, in particular Pine Street, Arch Street, 5th Street, and a location below in Bel Air. He wanted to let you know that he's implemented a directive for all supervisors and team leaders to assign officers on their shifts to these areas with mandatory reporting: officer, date, times, enforcement action, observations, etc. He is compiling the activity in a Word document, on an ongoing basis. He's developing a plan, and in that plan, he's trying to manage some data, and he's asking the public and us to communicate that if a person you have contact with, or if a person in the general public has a non-emergency, that they dial 302-855-2970, or they can dial 302-629-6645 and ask for an administrator. And this will route the call into a queue where that data can be managed. Right now, there's a lot of channels coming into the police department, and it's very difficult to manage those cases and calls. So he's asking for our assistance in managing that flow of information coming in so that it could be managed much more efficiently, so that and tracked, because you can't manage what you don't measure. So that's important, and it'll help him adjust resources where they need to be. So with that, I'll conclude my report, and I apologize for the incorrect filing.
Thank you. All right, next we'll have electric with Councilman Mulvaney.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The report in its entirety is recorded. I did this, I had to print it out because there was so much that was going on. I wanted to make sure that I had it a little bit categorized here. The crew has been extremely busy. I'll start with power outages. Circuit 280 had one in one of the storms. Of course, we've had so many storms, I'm not sure which one it was. It affected 700 customers. They were out for about a half an hour. Shipley State Service Center had an outage on April 27th. It was a bad cutout there. They were out of power for about an hour. They've had a couple of residential tree removals in this last work period. One was on 718 West Ivy, and the other one was down the street from me, 216 Hickory. And street lights have been repaired that were on High Street. They've been working on Venture Drive, doing an extension out there. And a lot of the work has been, if you're anywhere near the post office, they set poles and the cutouts for Melanie's Ridge right there on 13A. They were setting the poles the other day. And they've done extensive work out at the Dolby Lift Station. If you haven't been northbound, that's a heck of a lift station. Mm-hmm. It is big. They set the pole and the framing out there for the service to the lift station. Bill Bennett was out there several times meeting with the engineer and the electrician. Also, he had to meet several times with the Melanie Ridge people. And I thought it was one interesting complaint to wrap this up. There was a leaning pole complaint on Magnolia, on 733 Magnolia Drive, and it wasn't our pole, it was Verizon's. So they let Verizon know they had to replace the pole. And that concludes my report.
Okay, thank you. Next, we have Administration IT, Councilman Holland.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. They participated in taking several calls and working with the mayor and the governor on keeping the community updated on COVID-19 virus. They had a conference call with Mike Char regarding the Montessori school, and they attended various other conference calls, and all the work is routine, and that concludes my report.
Okay, thank you very much. And finally, we have Code, Parks and Rec, Councilman King.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My report has been submitted in its entirety. I will go over some of the highlights. Mike Bailey has reported that the Code Department has issued 126 permits year-to-date. Rental license renewals have been sent out for 2020. There was 14 outstanding rental invoices from last year. Currently, the city of Seaford has 1,608 rental units currently in the city, 596 of them being homes and 1,012 being apartments. Some of the large project statuses currently going on in our community. The Wawa Water and Sewer install is going very well. Our Lady of Lourdes Church is almost completed. Herring Ridge, all work is completed. Melanie Ridge curbing and road work has started, and Muirfields, the first duplex is finished. Superintendent Katie Hickey reports that the Parks Department has been working on Gateway Fountain. They found some problems once they turned it on, so right now it's currently shut off. They've been working on the irrigation system at the sports complex. Did a lot of mower repairs and maintenance on several pieces of equipment. She created and posted signs about proper social distancing in all of our parks. Picked up a lot of limb debris and damage on Virginia Avenue and Market Street extended. They boarded off the front of the Jay's Nest due to people still entering the playground. And then they worked on the irrigation on the High Street Bridge flower baskets. With that concludes my report.
All right, thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
I would like to say a kudos to our two chiefs for all that you guys have done through this virus and keeping us up to date on everything. Also want to thank our city manager, Tricia, June. Everybody has pitched in. Tracy has been on countless conference calls with the governor and every state official to try to keep up to date, to make sure they're covering our city, making sure we're making ourselves available to any opportunities to get through this virus quickly and get back on our feet and the momentum back up. It is interesting to note, though, even though all this has been going on, our infrastructure projects are continuing and things are building and things are getting done. So appreciate all the work doesn't stop just because this is happening. We're moving forward on all those things. So appreciate the hard work that you guys are doing. So with that, I'll accept a motion.
Got 5 minutes.
I'm so sorry. Thank you, Tracy. So with that, I'll have Councilman Holland sing.
You'll be leaving early.
Dance?
That'd be even worse.
Well,
Like your slide.
so we're holding up 1 minute because of tax appeals till 8 o'clock to see if anybody will come in. Okay, so with that, I'll accept a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
So we have a motion from Councilman McCoy. Do we have a second?
I'll second the motion.
A second from Councilman Mulvaney. Can we have a roll call vote? Tracy?
Councilman McCoy,
Aye.
Councilman Henderson,
Aye.
Councilman Mulvaney,
Aye.
Councilman Holland,
Aye.
and Councilman King.
Aye.
So moved. Thank you.